This is Orange Nation Overtime with Steve Infanti and Paulie Scibilia.
Welcome into Orange Nation Overtime, everyone. Alongside Paulie Scibilia, I'm Steve Infanti. We have made it to Thursday here on the show. We started things off today talking SU basketball. Of course, the big news yesterday was about the Rutgers game being placed in early February. February 6th will be that Rutgers game down at the Barclays Center, right in the heart of ACC play. We had Mike Waters on our show today, Paulie, to discuss all things SU basketball. I asked him a question at the end of the interview about I said, there are a lot of things that we like about this team with the positional size and the defensive ability and the depth, and it seems like they've got a lot of guys who could contribute. I asked him what he thought was the biggest weakness on this team. What do you think is the biggest weakness on this team?
Shooting is what I'm going to say right now. The only person I've heard of that is been discussed as a knockdown shooter is Triple M Moreno there.
Mark Morano, Mamatovic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Triple M.
Yep.
That's how I refer to him. But yeah, I think shooting and rebounding is going to be an issue.
Okay. We had Mike Waters on our show today. Yeah.
And I let him off with a brilliant question of, Mike, basketball's coming up and we just don't know, do we?
You're absolutely right. And it's not even about, guys moving up a level, although it does make it a little trickier trying to predict exactly, what kind of production you're going to get from a player who is taking that step up. But all the coaches I talked to this summer, whether they've overhauled their roster with a bunch of mid-major guys like Syracuse or Boston College, or if they've overhauled their rosters and brought in a bunch of Power 5 conference kids like Pittsburgh, they don't know. They really don't know. And the teams have to come together. Guys have to fit into a new system. And like at Pittsburgh, you've got guys that are coming from schools that are in Power 5 conferences, but, one of them being Nathan George from Syracuse and another one being Akir Soare, also from Syracuse. But, some of these guys, you're like, well, how are they going to produce here? And can we get them to come together and win? Jalil Bethea was at Miami 2 years ago, had a pretty good freshman year. He rode the bench at Alabama, so now he transfers to Pittsburgh. So, yeah, Jeff Capel is saying the same things that Jerry McNamara is saying and the same things that Luke Murray's saying, and it's getting repeated in basketball offices all across the country. It's just impossible these days, unless you're just looking at a collection of immense talent at one of, the top 10 programs.
And in the case of Will Wade, they don't know who's even playing for them this coming season. So they got a lot of questions down there.
Well, Steve, speaking of that, there are a series of lawsuits where guys are getting an extra year, and I understand that you played a little D3 ball.
I did, man. I wish my body would allow me.
Wade might be calling.
I can't help him. I can't help him as much as I would love to. I can't help him. I do want to ask you about the schedule, right? We found out yesterday that this Rutgers game has been slated for early February, which is interesting because, we saw last year their 4 big games were all in a row. It was, 3 in the span of 48 hours in Vegas, and then they came home, they played Tennessee, and kind of what they did during that stretch defined their non-conference schedule. This year we're seeing that they're spreading it out quite a bit, and, so much so that the Rutgers game falls in the heart of ACC play. What do you make of the timing of that?
I thought it was really interesting, with the ACC teams, usually getting a weekend with no game. Most teams just take it as an off weekend. Rest and recovery, no travel. This is great, but, a Saturday in February is prime television viewing, and for college basketball, it's a great time to seize on the fact that the NFL is over, except maybe 2 teams are playing in the Super Bowl, but not on a Saturday. So you get a chance to go into an NBA arena and maybe just keep the rhythm of the season going. I don't know. I was studying that yesterday, and I was like, well, if you had a few nagging injuries, it'd be great to have a weekend off. But nagging injuries can happen anytime, as Syracuse saw last year when Donnie Freeman missed all 3 games in Las Vegas plus the Tennessee game back at the Dome. So maybe it's kind of going to be beneficial to space out November and December, take one game out of there and plunk it down in February. And Brooklyn's lovely in February too, guys. So I'm really looking forward to that.
In terms of the other big news with SU basketball recently, the addition of Amari Monroe. You mentioned the lawsuits that are going on around the country. He was part of that one out in Colorado that granted everybody who was in the portal could have the extra year of eligibility, and so Syracuse went out and grabbed him. I know you had a chance to talk to him a little bit. What stands out to you about this young man who's going to spend his fifth year at Syracuse?
Well, not just when you talk to Amari, but when you talk to people who know him, who've watched him. Like I talked with Tom Pecora, who was his coach at Quinnipiac for the last 3 years. And Tom he couldn't say enough, couldn't praise the kid enough. Character-wise, how hard he works on his game. The fact that after being named the Metro Atlantic's Player of the Year in 2025, and having a number of opportunities to go get a lot of money at a bigger school. I mean, he entered the portal that year, and he was contacted or had interest from places like Maryland, Rutgers, Memphis, Ole Miss, Miami, Butler, and his finalists included Kansas and Miami and Pittsburgh, Connecticut, Rutgers, and he goes back to Quinnipiac. And Tom just said, he had found a place where he was comfortable, family, and he wanted to help Quinnipiac win their league, win their tournament, and go to the NCAA tournament for the first time in school history. So he went back to Quinnipiac for about half or one-third of what he might have made at one of those larger schools. Now, unfortunately, Quinnipiac, he had a nagging injury. Quinnipiac's season didn't quite go the way it wanted to. There was this team near Albany called Siena College that had a great run. And, Terry McNamara spoiled Quinnipiac's, goals of making the NCAA tournament. But, Tom just kept raving about the guy. And I talked to another coach, an assistant, not from Siena, not Jerry, not any of his assistants at SU now, but another guy from that league who had the game plan for him. And I won't mention this guy's name because I didn't tell him I was going to be on a radio show the next day. But he just said, the guy is built. He's cut. He's athletic, strong. He thought maybe one of the things that didn't go well for Amari this past season when his scoring average dropped from 18 points a game down to about 15 and a half was, twofold. One, he was taking on all of the offensive load. He was the focus of every scouting report. And it was just hard. He was always taking the shots at the end of the shot clock. It's one reason why his three-point shooting percentage was in the high 20s instead of about 35% like it was as a sophomore. But he also said he thought maybe the kid got away from what was his strengths a little bit. Maybe, took a few too many threes, was outside, and just did a little too much. He said if he can get back to playing the way he played as a junior, that is the Amari Monroe that you want.
Where do you put the percentage of him actually being able to play this year, Mike?
I am not a legal analyst, Paulie. It's hard to say right now. He's made his decision to transfer to Syracuse, on the strength of this case out in Colorado. That, right now the NCAA is not doing well in court cases. They even, after the judge ruled against them, against the NCAA and created opportunity for all these players to go ahead and transfer, the NCAA filed an injunction that the judge denied it this past Monday. Now, the NCAA is still appealing the case, but initially this asked for a stay in the ruling. The judge turned it down. And this judge out in Colorado, from what she's saying and what she's writing, she doesn't seem very inclined to accept the NCAA's argument on its face. And a lot of people are saying the NCAA might have goofed up here, that's a legal term, by when they introduced all these new rules, the 5-and-5 rule and everything, by not just letting last year's seniors be part of it. And, yeah, it would have created a little bit of chaos, but, God, look at the chaos we've created anyway. It's like you can't get away from chaos right now. So, I would say there's a better than 50% chance that Amari Monroe suits up for Syracuse next year. The only thing that can really hurt him and all these other athletes is courts don't always move fast. And is it going to move fast enough for them to, be able to transfer and register for courses at a new school? And that I don't know. It's going to be really hard because you got court cases going on all over the country. I mean, J.J. Starling just added his name to a case out in California yesterday.
That's what I was going to follow up with was JJ. Do you expect him to be playing college basketball next year? And have you talked to him about what his plans are?
I have not talked to JJ. We've reached out to his agent to try to get a little clarity on the subject. Right now, I think he added his name to the case so that he has options. But up until this point, they've been exploring options both in the G League and overseas. And I still think that if they get a good opportunity in either one of those areas, G League or go play professional ball overseas somewhere, I think JJ might be inclined to go that route. But if they can get all this legal wrangling, settled, and there's a school out there that wants to pay him as much as some team in Estonia wants to, why wouldn't you stay another year in America, in the States, and make that kind of money?
And just to quiet the noise and nip this in the bud, no chance he comes back to Syracuse, correct, in your mind?
I don't think so. First of all, I think adding Amari Monroe puts Syracuse at its roster limit.
Yeah, right.
So, and even beyond that, I don't know if another year at Syracuse is what JJ necessarily wants. So no. You can put that to rest.
Based on what you heard yesterday with Seth Trimble committing to Louisville, do you think Louisville is now the favorite in the conference? Would you put them above Duke?
Oh boy, he's a good player. Averaged about 14 points a game last year for Carolina, but. So he's a good addition for Louisville. I already like Louisville.
Well, right. That's what I'm saying. They were already loaded. Now you add another piece. I don't know.
I don't know. I think I still lean Duke.
Okay.
If you ask me today to sit down with pad and pen and come up with my preseason predictions, I still might lean Duke. Until somebody knocks these guys off convincingly. John Shires is doing an incredible job there, both with retention and he just he keeps recruiting well. He gets the best high school recruits, and then, he gets they don't hit the portal hard like other schools, but when they do, it's very specific. And they brought in John Blackwell, one of the highest rated transfers from Wisconsin. So I think I'll still say Duke, but I got a lot of time yet. So,
that's true.
Talk to me again in October.
All right, we will talk to you again in October. Last one. Go ahead. You got something?
Yeah, I was going to ask you just about your alma mater, Mike. How you feeling about the Tar Heels?
Just okay, I think. And Michael Malone, I think, has done a decent job rebuilding the roster. But I think really, the main thing down there is he needs to. I want to see what Michael Malone's teams play like. Carolina finally played defense. And they played, they always like to run. They love the fast break. But sometimes when Carolina's not a really good team, they run, they love to play offense, and they come back on play defense. It's almost like it's just time well spent until you get the ball back again. Now, when Roy Williams and Hubert Davis had, teams that were really good, they had some guys that were willing to buy in on defense. Michael Malone, I remember watching his Denver Nuggets teams. I love those Denver teams. The team that won the NBA title with Nikola Jokic and guys like that. I want to see how these teams play. I'm intrigued. But I I don't know. I think he's put together a good roster. It's going to be one of the better ones in the league, but I don't think they're anywhere near Louisville or Duke.
Last one from me, Mike, as we get you out of here. I think we all look at this roster that Jerry's put together, and we see everything that he's been talking about, positional size and defensive ability and versatility and depth and so on and so forth. What's the weakness? What's the biggest weakness in your mind with this roster, or maybe your biggest area of concern going into the new season before you see it?
3-point shooting. It'll be interesting to see how well this team shoots it from the outside. Two answers to that question could be both Aiden Tobiasen and Mark Morano. Beyond that, point guard play. The idea of going with Garway DeWall as your point guard is interesting. He's not a pure point guard. He's obviously going to, he will be able to do one thing you always want your point guard to do, and that's lock up the other team's point guard. So Garway will do that. Now, he's not a flashy offensive guy. He's not a great shooter. So it's on the offensive end that I'm wondering where the point guard play will come from. But probably like you guys, I keep hearing good things about Ryan Mesh.
Yeah.
Maybe there is an option there that I really didn't consider an option 2-3 months ago. So, but I think those would be the two areas that's what I'll definitely be looking at when practice rolls around the fall and we really get a chance to look at these guys in October.
And Mike Waters agrees with you.
Yes.
He points to shooting as well as potentially one of the concerns. And again, we just don't know. I mean, on paper, we say, okay, does this team have enough shooting? Does this team have enough rebounding? Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. We'll all find out together, in early November as this thing gets going for real.
And I tend to think Kyan will get better and everybody else will bump up a little bit.
We did ask him about J.J. Starling. Again, J.J. Starling has attached his name to that injunction in the state of California, similar to the one that that was granted in the state of Colorado that's allowing Amari Monroe to play. There is, I see people are concerned about, is J.J. going to be on the team? J.J.'s not going to be on the team. To Mike's point, at right now they are at their maximum level of players on the roster, and to be honest, I don't think JJ would want to come back.
And another thing, you don't have to be jerks about it.
Yeah.
Wish him well, and I hope he goes somewhere if he does play college basketball next year and is successful.
Well, you go on Twitter and you look at all the reports yesterday about JJ's name is on the injunction, and the comments were just all please no, he can't come back. No.
I hope he comes back somewhere and is successful.
Right. Baldwinsville kid, again, good kid. Just it didn't work out for him at Syracuse the way everybody had hoped, but you wish him well and hope that he can find success somewhere else, whether that's in college or playing overseas or wherever it may be. We did talk some NFL today as well. We had our good friend John Schmelk on, pre- and post-game host for the New York Giants. We asked him about training camp, obviously, and the John Harbaugh era, which is underway with the Giants, and that's where we let him off. We asked him if he's seen any main changes or differences between the way he's running camp and the likes of Brian Daboll or Joe Judge.
Well, I would say just the structure of practices are very, very different. They're longer. I mean, a lot of his practices, once you got past the ramp-up period, we're going a legit 2.5 hours, which is extremely long. And the last hour and a half, if not more of that, is basically just consecutive periods of something happening with, full competition and teamwork in some way, shape, or form where, there's none of these scheduled water breaks in there. It's just it's a lot of football. And that's what John Harbaugh's all about. It's all about football. Everything's about football. And I think, not that the other guys wasn't, I just think that he's really making sure they get in as much of this, full-speed football stuff as they possibly can in every practice.
Along those lines, I was reading something as camp started up about how Brian Daboll, again, right or wrong, Brian Daboll had a little bit of an easier practice schedule when it came to training camp, and that John Harbaugh, to your point, is known for a little bit more, difficult workouts, harder workouts. The Giants last year were statistically one of the most injured teams in the NFL. I think they were number 2 behind the Cardinals, if I'm not mistaken. Do you think those things relate? Does that correlate at all between the way camp went last year and maybe how hard or maybe lack thereof that Brian Daboll pushed them? Did that lead to more injuries in the season, or does that not go together in your mind?
No, here's the thing. I don't think Brian Daboll ran compared to the rest of the NFL a light camp. I think it was pretty typical of what the rest of the league was doing, to be totally honest with you. I think that's where the league is heading, making sure these guys have recovery. And, you know, you talk about the team being injured more, you would think if they're giving these guys more recovery, they'd stay healthier, right?
Right.
So I don't know if there's much correlation there at all, to be honest with you, but the Giants have avoided any really serious injuries, you know, so far during camp. You know, they were, you know, we have Bo Collins injured earlier in camp, but that's kind of about it. So far, so good. You know, no one's cramping up during practice. Everyone's in really good shape, and I think John Harbaugh is really trying to condition these guys to be able to survive a 17-game football season.
You talk about injuries. Malik Neighbors coming back from an injury, coming off that torn ACL. How's he looked, and what is the timetable for him? Should he be ready to go in time for the start of the season?
Look, the Giants aren't committing to anything. Malik Neighbors isn't committing to anything. They're literally taking this day by day. John Harbaugh spoke to the media yesterday. He says, look, they're going to try to ramp up into more group and team stuff maybe as early as next week, is what the coach said. We'll have to see. It's going to be based on how Malik Neighbors feels. And, look, the fact that he wasn't put on PUP to start training camp and he looked really good running routes on air and doing individual work and doing install periods that are not against the defense, where he's moving fast, he's cutting on the leg, he's running full speed, he's cutting, he's doing all that stuff you want to see. So I think you have to feel pretty good about it.
How about the return of Odell Beckham Jr., 33 years old now? You know, he's dealt with some injuries over the course of time. What is his role going to be? What do you foresee that role being this year for Odell Beckham Jr.?
Well, we'll see. I mean, it's still a fight for him to be on the roster. This is a very deep wide receiver room, and there are a lot of really good players, veterans, younger players, guys that play special teams. He's a guy that doesn't play special teams. So if you're at the back of that wide receiver group, or even, you know, the back half of it, if you keep six, you know, numbers 4, 5, or 6, you know, you have to bring a lot as a receiver if you're not going to really contribute on special teams, right? So I'll be interesting to see how he carves out the role. To me, I think he's still going to be one of the smarter wide receivers, one of the better route running wide receivers, certainly the guy with probably the best hands in the wide receiver room, and I think he could be a real reliable third down target for Jackson Dart in those situations where they need a first down for a guy to catch the ball when you throw it to him. You know, he hasn't been here long, so he has to make sure he has the playbook straight and all that stuff. And I think he's got a real shot to make the team and be a contributor. But it's going to be a battle in the next 3 weeks. It's a very crowded wide receiver room.
We were talking earlier in the show about optimistic fan bases, and one of the reasons Giants fans can be optimistic, of course, is the quarterback position. We saw Jackson Dart with some really nice flashes of what he can do last year. Coming into his second year now, it is a new offensive system, but it's his second year. What are you expecting from Jackson Dart this year? What is a realistic expectation for his kind of production?
I think the key is to turn those flashes into more consistent high-level play, right? I think you have to make sure every play he's doing the right thing, he's looking at the right stuff, he's making the right decisions, he's getting the ball out, and it's not like a volatile, all right, okay play, bad play, great play, you know? And I think that's kind of where he is. He spoke earlier in the offseason in terms of working on his under-center drop back with his footwork, and that'll help him get through his progressions and get the ball out quick. I think between Matt Nagy, Greg Roman, Brian Callahan, he's got a group of coaches working with him with a lot of experience in different systems. So I think they're really going to put him in a position to succeed. I think the offense is really going to heavily rely on the run, which will take some of that pressure off of him if they become one of the better running games in football, which I think is a goal for John Harbaugh. So I think he has a chance to take a step in year two. Remember, though, quarterback progression is not always linear. You just never know what it's going to look like. Go ask, C.J. Stroud about that. But, to me, he's a guy that has a lot of potential if he can continue to learn. And hopefully, they're talking about how he's learned all the language of this offense and the playbook. He's done a great job with that. Now he's just got to translate onto the field when you get into game situations. And we're not going to know any of that until we get to Dallas in week one.
John, I was asking you about the pass rush. On paper, it looks like it's going to be tough for opponents to contend with Brian Burns and Abdul Carter. And in the draft, they go out and they get Arvell Reese. And, you got Kayvon Thibodeau there. What do you make of this pass rush? And is that the strength of this defense?
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm sitting in one place. I'm not sure where the line dropped. Look, I think fans should be excited about it. But the question is, can you do well enough on first and second down against the run to put yourself in position on second and third down to rush the passer, right? I think that was a problem last year where the run defense just wasn't good enough, so they weren't put in enough positions where you could really, pin your ears back and rush. And they have a group of linebackers, the outside and inside guys. They all look the same. Jermaine Edmonds, Arvell Reese, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, Abdul Carter. They're all like 6'5 to 6'4 to 6'6, between 240 and 250 pounds. So I think defensive coordinator Denard Wilson can really do some creative things with those guys to keep defenses on their toes and to confuse them. Who's coming? Who's dropping? How are they coming? You can do the old Brian Flores, stand up like 7 guys at the line and try to figure out what anybody's doing. So I think they'll have a lot of weapons at their disposal if they can stop the run well enough on early downs.
What are the other storylines that you're looking at here during camp as we're still, 3-4 weeks out from the start of the regular season?
Yeah, we really talked about the deep wide receiver room. I think how that, figures itself out will be interesting. Defensive back is the other thing. Denard Wilson, I mentioned him in the last answer. He's the Giants defensive coordinator now. He came in under John Harbaugh. He was with him there. Then he was at D.C. in Tennessee. And he's a former defensive backs coach. So I think if he can get these defensive backs playing to their talent level, I think that's where we might be able to see the biggest jump from this team, to be totally honest with you. But can he get them to do that, right? And the competition at cornerback, I think right now is really fierce between Paulson and Debo. Deontay Banks has had a really good offseason. Greg Newsome they brought in this year on a one-year deal. Then you have rookie second-round pick Colton Hood. Those 4 guys have all rotated between the first and second teams. So they've all had opportunities. Who wins out as those 2 starting corners? We'll have to wait and see. And then they've been rotating in Jason Pinnock and Ardarius Washington at safety with the starters Javon Holland and Tyler Nubin. So that's been a rotation. I'm curious to see how that defensive backfield sorts itself out as we get closer to the season.
While we were waiting to reconnect with you, we were talking about the young core that they've got here with, Dart and Neighbors, and, they brought over Isaiah Likely, at the tight end position. On defense, we were, discussing that pass rush and the potential there. Do you feel like, and now, John Harbaugh here as head coach, do you feel like they're trending in the right direction? And what are the expectations this year? Is it playoffs in year 1, or are they building toward that maybe in, year 2, 3, 4 under Harbaugh?
Well, I think the goal is always to make the playoffs. And I'm sure when John Harbaugh sits in the room with the guys, he talks about being good enough to win a Super Bowl. That's what every, coach's mission is every year. But I think given where the Giants have been, they were picking in the top 5 last year, and they have for many of the past 10 years or so. For me, and again, this isn't how the coaches or the front office looks at it, but this is what I've been telling fans that have called up, our live call and show Big Blue Kickoff every day, that look, if you're sitting down on either the Friday after Thanksgiving or maybe you're at a holiday party in mid-December and the Thursday night football game is on and they put up the playoff graphic and they have the first column to the left is division leaders, you have the middle column is wild card teams, and then you have the third team column, which is in the hunt. The problem for the Giants is that many times in the last decade, by Halloween, they were off that graphic. Just be in the hunt column when you get to mid-December. Like, if you could finish this season in and around 500, for me, that would be a good step in the right direction and a successful season. I'm sure the team has their heights, has their hopes set higher, pardon me. But for me, if you're finishing this year and you're playing for a potential playoff spot late in December, I think that's a successful season for me.
It does seem, Paulie, like there are reasons to be optimistic for the Giants that, whether or not they make the playoffs, it's almost beside the point this year. It does seem like they're building towards something, and it seems like they're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and sometimes you do see a team pop early on, and then they take a slight step back, and then the progress. Syracuse football, for example, you might come out and pop, and then take a step back and go forward again. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. I think they will be better this year than they were last.
All right, what do you got for us today?
It's National Left-Handers Day for people like myself who are smarter and better than anybody else. It's left-handers. So that's out there. National Filet Mignon Day, Steve. It celebrates the cut of beef that is the most tender and least exercised muscle of the animal. My whole body would be a filet mignon, Steve, if I was a cow. It's National Prosecco Day. That's Italian sparkling wine. And it's National Women's and Families Day.
Oh, okay. There you go. A lot to celebrate. My mom was a left-hander, by the way, and my son
and
Luke
a woman.
Yes, very much so, and the leader of our family. My son Luke is a left-hander as well. All right, we got to go. We appreciate you listening and watching, everybody. For Paulie, I'm Steve. Take care. We'll do it again tomorrow and close out the week.